Did you do this on purpose? Did you tell your readers to email us?
I keep them aware, yes. It's the only weapon I have, you know, are my readers.
Weapon?
It's a weapon, yeah. Power the people.
Question from Joe of Denver. Do you think we have heard the last of possible crimes about the Clinton administration?
Who knows? Is Roger Clinton pleading the fifth today in front of that White Plains grand jury? I hear he might. Does anybody really care? I don't know. I would think Clinton is going into the sunset. His wife, however, is not. The New York Post, and I don't know if you've seen this yet this morning, Brian, is the First Lady, the former First Lady, snubbing President Bush at the White House. She's refusing to go to lunch on Monday when he celebrates his first 100 days. This, I think, is a petty slap. We'll see if the main press beyond the
But aren't a ton of them not going for a lot of reasons? I mean, including Republicans?
Yes, but she's not just one of them. She's a special one, and I think this country could use some congeniality, and I wish she would go.
Andrew of College Park, Maryland, emails to say, do you have any ambitions to run for political office sometime in the future?
No, I think too many people have too many pictures.
George of Brett, Arizona, what do you think of the Napster problem?
Napster problem? I'm a Napster guy. I'm on Napster all the time. I don't think it's a problem. I think there are many people in the business industry who find it a problem and who think it's pinching their business. But I think this new technology, it's gonna be hard to hold it back. If it's not Napster, it'll be somebody offshore who will provide us a network that we can link and swap.
Matt Drudge, Cindy of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, who is Spinner 98 regarding Lewinsky scandal, also regarding Drudge Manifesto.
Spinner 98 was a White House source who I first revealed the Kathleen Willey story to on a Saturday morning. The White House staffer instant messaged me on AOL. You know, Bob Woodward had the garage. We have instant messages and chat rooms. And I said, what do you know about Kathleen Willey? And that started a whole chain of events that led to the summer of '97 and beyond.
Where's your hat?
I don't wear that on your network, Brian. I've got respect.
Jared of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, what do you think of the current state of popular culture? That is music, film, television.
Oh, we've only got an hour. I don't know. You go to the front page of the New York Post, and we've got CNN now going to an anchor person who has some nude problems.
Is this today?
This is today, and this is probably the first headline with the new editor of the New York Post, and I can see he's getting tough.
He's from Australia.
He's from Australia, and we're starting to feel a bite now coming from the New York Post after a few soft years.
This is Andrea Thompson. She's going to be an anchor on Headline News. What do you think of that?
It sounds like they're going to get a ratings increase. Buy stock in AOL Time Warner.
Guilford, Connecticut, Democrat line 4. Matt Drudge, you're on.
Hi, Brian and Matt. I'm reporting this news in the interest of saving two young girls' lives. Mm-hmm. The two young girls happen to be the twin daughters of the president. Now, in the National Enquirer and the Star this week, they were reporting episodes of these two young babies getting involved in drinking parties. But one of the episodes involved the Secret Service people chasing Barbara's car from New Haven, Connecticut to New York City on a rain-drenched highway at speeds of over 100 miles an hour. Now, what we're all facing here, and I'm not going to editorialize, but none of the networks are covering this. Neither the president nor his wife seem to be taking an interest in saving the lives of their daughters. And what I'm trying to say here is this. Are we going to just sit by and let these episodes keep happening one after another?
Thanks.
By this phone call, you're saving the life of the daughters? Ma'am, in all fairness, I don't know what we know on how the parents are treating their children. I don't think you know. I don't think the National Enquirer knows. My friend Steve Cause down there in Tabloid Valley. I read the reports. I've linked to some of the stories. There was a great story, I guess, out of the Yale newspaper that they decided not to run a version of events. I believe it was Yale. This is tricky territory. I remember when Al Gore's son got pulled over for going 90 in the 55, and he was arrested. If they get arrested, we've got ourselves a dynamic headline. All of this frat house stuff, what do you think, ma'am, they do in the frat houses? Have you been to a college campus lately? It sounds to me like there's some normal kids who are about to get in trouble if they're not careful.
Houston, you're on the air.
Good morning. How are you today?
Welcome.
I wanted to specifically ask Mr. Todd, you all's Hotline News editor, why hasn't he reported a major story this morning? And Drudge will, of course, be interested in this. It's out of Yahoo News. China warns it will pay any price to recover Taiwan. The paper Gumyong News, China's newspaper, has said it that we are on the precipice. And I have 2 points on this to make that are pretty important. And this story, of course, is more important than the lady who just called, with us being at the precipice of war possibly, is that our news, including C-SPAN, has not reported this particular story this morning, but at freerepublic.com. Free Republic has this news and has all stories related to it and other news, and I was hoping that you'll let me get that name, freerepublic.com, across.
Thanks, caller. Mr. Drudge.
Yeah, you got it 4 times.
Yeah, don't mind that. We need to get your response.
The China story is fascinating. It continues to be. Anyone who has access to the Shenhua Wire service, which is the official news service out of China and Beijing, knows we're in trouble, and there's a rhetoric increase. Bill Gertz today has another exclusive, and Bill Gertz, it's good to see that a change of administration has not dried up his sources on exactly what we lost. This is a scoop the USA Today managed not to get this morning. They're pretty, I see the Bush administration leaking to USA Today like there's no tomorrow. I've never seen so many exclusives, by the way, Brian, on the cover of one newspaper as USA Today this morning.
We talked about all 3 of them all morning.
But Bill Gertz gets one they don't, and it is the amount of secrets that we have given to them with this plane episode. I would watch the Shenhua Wire service. I would watch the People's Daily. We have access to those now. You don't have to get everything through the Pentagon spokesman or the AP rewrite.
Matt Drudge, we go to Arlington, Virginia. Excuse me, Arlington, Virginia. You're on the air.
Yes, I was calling to find out if you had an opinion on why we really haven't heard anything about disenfranchisement in not just the state of Florida, but everywhere for that matter.
What do you mean we haven't heard about the disenfranchisement? It's in every paper every day. Have you not been reading this stuff?
No, that's not the case. The last time I've actually heard an opinion from our president, he was saying that he was hearing people say what they heard, or sources, as you say. But as a person who was actually experiencing that as a transplant from Florida, I just moved here, no one really experienced it.
All right.
According to him.
All right, thanks. Matter of fact, there's just a lot of columns in the newspapers this morning. This is in The Economist. Remember Florida and weep. Yes, as Catherine Harris, Florida Secretary of State, and the women in the heart of the Florida fiasco testified on Capitol Hill this week, the momentum for reform is melting like mascara in the rain.
Well, you know, the results from the major count from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Wall Street Journal, I believe the AP, they've all pulled resources, and Brian, they've recounted everything. It's in. There's a 10-day embargo, and all the newspapers on the same day are going to release the information. Of course, they're already starting to have some leaks. My concern is, why do we believe what the New York Times and the LA Times and the Washington Post as a group say? It sounds to me like the Voter News Service revisited. And I don't know since when does one large organization get it right.
Are their findings different than what the last group came out with?
We're about to find out. I'm trying to track this down. This is one of the big stories this weekend here in Washington, is exactly how this count has come out. Again, this is the big one. The one we had before was USA Today and Knight Ridder. This is the major. The LA Times, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all gathered together. My pal Isikoff was down in Tallahassee observing for Newsweek I don't know who was observing for the others, but this is the one. This is the one that should end this once and for all. The results are in. It's just under an embargo, so they can, I guess, get the artwork together and the theme music.
Will the media treat that with more credibility than they did the Miami Herald or USA Today?
I thought that it was treated with credibility, but this one should be one of the final comments on the topic, considering it is every single major news outlet in America combining force at this point. I mean, again, I don't know what that means. It's reminiscent of the Voter News Service, who on election night robbed us and misled us. And by the way, threatened to sue me for leaking their faulty information.
Fayetteville, North Carolina, for Matt Drudge. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, as far as that deal, I was kind of interested in the fact that, you know, Florida was the only state that didn't have the exit polls as it came out, as the exit polls weren't the same result as what showed up. And the Florida, I mean, we're looking at Jeb and that whole group down there. Those folks down there have been doing this gig for a long time for the Bush family. I mean, the base for the Iran-Contra was right there in Homestead, Florida. But that's the least of all this thing. My comment here on China is our boy Baby Bush has taken the word sorry and turned it into the word is.
Sounds like you're not going to believe the New York Times results if and when. So, you know, I guess people will have their opinions straight to the end on this. As far as calling him Baby Bush, I'm not going to go that far, or Little Bush, as China is calling him. You're welcome to call him whatever you want, of course, but to me, he's my president. And there's a different feeling from the last time I was here, Brian. Last time I was here was with Clinton, and I just detect a different feeling, at least from where I'm coming from, but of course I'm biased.
Jimmy of Tavares, Florida, based on what you have heard, do you think Bob Kerrey is telling the truth about the incident in Vietnam where civilians were killed? How has the media handled this revelation?
I draw your attention to Howard Kurtz, who, boy, what does he print out? About a couple thousand words a day now. And Kurtz had the story about Newsweek spiking the story that came to our attention this week back in '98. What a bombshell for Kurtz. And the Washington Post, which owns Newsweek, did put it on page A4, which is a slap, I think, at their sister outlet. Kurtz goes to tell how Newsweek had the story 3 years ago and decided not to run with it.
Let me read what Evan Thomas said to Howard Kurtz. We could have run the story. Evan Thomas, an assistant managing editor who interviewed Curry with Vestica. That's Greg Vestica, who wrote the piece in the New York Times Magazine. We had Curry's confirmation. We just didn't want to do it to the guy when he wasn't running for president. Thomas added, the idea of coming out with a story about him 2 days after he announced he wasn't running for president would seem strange and unnecessary. It certainly would raise questions about whether we had driven him out of the race.
We've got to spend at least a minute on this, Brian, because this is close to where I live. Of course, Newsweek one weekend decided not to run the Lewinsky story for reasons. They would claim they were still researching it. I don't know. I ran with it. And now, obviously, somebody's trumped their story. I am very uncomfortable with editors in Washington deciding when news breaks and why it should break. I like to draw your attention to Evan Thomas on Tim Russert's show. This was February 20th. This was CNBC, probably done just a few floors upstairs here. This was on Bob Dole in '96, on why they weren't reporting possible extramarital affairs of Bob Dole. He said, well, we were talking about this, but it's because Dole wasn't going to win. The press corps knew that Bob Dole was going to lose. Had it been a closer race, say a one-point race, pretty good bet we would have gotten into it. So to put it, ethics are situational. What gives these people the right to manipulate news based on who's going to win and who they can prevent from winning, or who they can make lose? I think Evan Thomas owes us some detailed explanations on this continuous theme that keeps emerging here out of Washington.
Omaha, you're on.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Matt, I really appreciate the fact that you're always on top of things. And I wanted to ask you a question about the Laura Bush situation where she was invited to the Jackie O gown thing and how she was dissed by the liberals. If you could comment on that, also why none of the media seem to have covered that? Yeah,
well, the real First Lady, please stand up. She's not liked. The elites coming off of Hillary are just not impressed with her, as far as I can tell. I'm going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner tomorrow night. They'll be polite, but it's not the love. It's not the standing ovation. It's just the way it is. It's a personality thing, I suspect. It's a cultural thing also. I don't see Laura Bush actually trying to seduce the media. She's just doing what she's doing. There's been a few interviews, but not a lot. Hillary really, I thought, went out of her way to win the media over. So much so, she's been throwing parties at her house here, and she's getting a lot of press attention and the like. So she's not the same as a Laura Bush, and I guess they don't like that in New York.
Pompano Beach, your Democratic line for Matt Drudge.
Good morning, my dear Brian, and hello, Mr. Drudge. Why don't you, since you call yourself a reporter, Matt Drudge, report on how John W. Hinckley has scheduled dinner with Bush's son Neil the very night that Reagan was shot, and how John Hinckley's oilman father was also very good friends with George Bush. Why don't you report on something like that the American people would really like to know about instead of everything else?
Or how do you know that John Hinckley and Neil Bush were going to have dinner?
Well, it was reported in this book that I read, and I think that it's been pretty much documented, although I don't think that a lot of reporters have the guts to cover it. And since Matt Drudge seems to cover a lot of other things, I would always assume that that would be something that would interest him.
Could you tell us the book?
It's called Ruled by Secrecy by Jim Marrs.
Thanks. Jim Marrs, the fellow that writes about the worldwide conspiracies of the Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral and all that.
Well, she's welcome to start her own website, as I did a couple of years ago, about 7 years ago. You know, all I've got is a website, ma'am. I have a radio show now, too, but you're welcome to launch a website and tell the world, and we'll all come, and we'll read your interpretation, your headlines, and your exclusives.
How much competition is your father, Bob Drudge, for your website?
Oh, it's been tough. The funny thing is, he bought me my computer. And I remember saying, what am I going to do with this? I was first on the internet, and I showed him, and he says, what am I going to do with that? Not interested. And boy, that's come around. But Bob Drudge, great competition for me, and I welcome it.
There's a picture of him. We might get him on the phone here. We tried to get him to come over here and be in the studio with you. Is he shy, man?
No, he's going to come one day.
Is he?
Yeah.
What do we have to do? We have to pay him?
No.
Culvert, Washington, you're on.
Yes, I'm calling about U.S.-China relations, old time. I don't know if there's anybody in the younger generations even read any history of World War II. When we fought for Chiang Kai-shek and saved China from the Japanese, the CBI theater, there was a tremendous part of the World War II. If it weren't for that, if we had defeated the Japanese, there would be a mainland Japan now. Perhaps most of it.
Thanks.
A movie opening up next month from Disney, Pearl Harbor, I think, is going to remind us the dangers of being so free, and with this new technology now, things probably look more like Star Wars than Pearl Harbor if we have another war. But I think it's going to be a dynamic summer for revisiting America and our threats.
At the end of the Howard Kurtz piece today on Newsweek, he has a lot of little things in there about Greg Vistica. Do you know him?
No, I don't.
He says Vistica said the story was painful for all the people involved. We're talking about the original Newsweek story. But he would not comment on an internal Newsweek matter. No stranger to controversy, while at the San Diego Union Tribune, he broke the story of the 1991 tailhook scandal in which Navy pilots groped women. In 1996, Navy Admiral Jeremy Mike Borda committed suicide less than 2 hours after learning that Vistica and Thomas would be interviewing him as a part of the Newsweek inquiry into whether he had properly earned 2 of his decorations. Sources say Vistica encountered some friction with Newsweek over his reporting, but Whitaker said, that's I believe the editor of Newsweek, Vistica's resignation last year was not related to the Kerry story. I mean, well, he's the author of the New York Times story on Sunday. So how did this thing get out? I mean, why
now? Kerry obviously put it out, did a preemptive, a lot like Jesse Jackson did a preemptive ahead of the National Enquirer, a lot like Bill Clinton constantly did preemptives. As a lot like George Bush, no doubt, will do preemptives. I see the leak in the USA Today over the CIA plane, and they leaked the tape transcript from the event last weekend in Peru. This is a leak. This is a classified leak, I suppose. Or,
you think it's a leak from the CIA or from the Bush administration?
I'm sensing the Bushies love USA Today. That's what I'm sensing.
Well, then they had this other rather large story about Donald Rumsfeld is going to propose $200 to $300 billion more for the Defense Department. That's also exclusive here on the front.
Yeah, they didn't have one source or two sources. They had three sources. So the Bushies really like USA Today. I would put my chips on USA Today for the next 4 years for some information coming from the inside.
And then Bill Nichols and Kathy Kiley and Mimi Hall have this exclusive. Taiwan's leader gets U.S. visa. And that's the, he's going to be entertained by Tom DeLay down there in Houston.
Now that smells like a house leak. The Republicans like USA Today, apparently.
Chicago, you're next on the Democratic line from Matt Drudge.
Yes, good morning. I have two quick questions. In your profession, on the one hand, you have a sacred duty to promote the public interest. On the other hand, your venture is a business, and you ought to make a profit to stay in business. How do you handle this dilemma between profit and the truth? And my second question is, the news media today reports events in a superficial manner without context or perspective. How do you face this challenge? Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Have I taken a sworn oath? I don't know. I love truth. I love finding truth. I also love mischief, and I love entertainment, and I love the excitement of being alive, especially in a free society where you have a First Amendment right to cover people in positions of power. And boy, there are too many people with power in this town. How do you mix that with making money? That's a different question. It should be addressed to people like Jerry Levin at Time Warner, who owns CNN and Headline News and Time Magazine, which they're much more obsessed on bottom line profits. A Mel Karmazin at Viacom, a Sumner Redstone at Viacom. All of these people are much more obsessed with bottom lines and stockholders than I am. I'm not a public company. I just need some money for me and my cat and a few other things.
You're living where now?
Miami Beach. I left California before the blackouts hit.
How would you characterize the, and I know you can tell me to go away after this question, how would you characterize your income these days from your website? Is it good?
Well, it's come from the days you asked me to, maybe I should charge $1 per reader. It's come a long way. Yeah, it's been good. Along the way, I've had a TV show for Fox News, a radio show for ABC Now Premiere, all stemming from the website and, of course, the ad revenue on the website. But we're having trouble online with revenue. Salon.com this week announced they're going to start charging and start adding nude pictures. I haven't quite had to resort to that yet. The second Drudge has a nude picture on there, I think I should be out of the business.
But do you think someday you might charge?
No, because it's too hard to collect. I don't think people are willing to pay for information that's so readily available elsewhere. I know some other people are charging. Limbaugh is interesting. Rush Limbaugh is dividing it up. Part of it's free, and a lot of the premium stuff is paid, and he's going to have some success with that because people do want to see Limbaugh in his studio and the rest. But I don't think people want to see me in my boxer shorts typing up the latest story on Colin Powell. Not pretty.
Princeton, West Virginia, for Matt Drudge. Good morning.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning, Matt. Hey, Matt, I just want to let you know that you've been my homepage for about 3 years, and you do an excellent job with it. The reason I'm calling is, since you're the breaking news guru, have you heard anything about what's going on in the Antarctic with the evacuation of these 12 individuals? Supposedly, this Sheminsky got off a plane yesterday, and he was walking, and a CNN reporter went up to him and asked him how he was, and this guy's supposed to be in dire need of emergency care, and he said he feels fine. So his pancreatitis situation didn't seem to be relevant to him, and I understand there's a couple of individuals in the hospital in New Zealand that are very ill, and additionally, there's a freighter that has left New Zealand with 138 trucks on it, stocked with material, etc., going to Makruto and Lake Vostok, because I understand they have found a magnetic anomaly there. And I'm just wondering, this information, do you know anything about that? Because I understand the NSA has taken over the JPL function down there.
Thanks.
I know nothing more than you do, sir. You seem pretty well versed, and I know Art Bella overnight on Talk Radio has been hitting this hard. All of these stories now you're able to monitor with all the wire copy coming from all the different nations, and the BBC especially has been covering this one. We've moved away from the period when only official Washington told us things. and or official networks told us things. It's much more now scattered, and the competition is great. So I imagine truth will win. The National Security Agency and all the rest, they're trying hard to squash every bit of information from down there, but I would suspect that story especially is going to get told eventually. A lot like all these stories, the foot and mouse story, if it eventually reaches America, we'll know about it. They won't be able to cover that up down in Atlanta.
Do you listen to Art Bell?
Sure do, yeah.
Now, I was listening to him the other night, and he was interviewing a fellow who had been on a ride on an extraterrestrial. He'd been out there somewhere on a little ship, and quite a nice interview about what they thought of America and all that stuff.
I think it was the former editor of the LA Times.
But what do you think of this?
Art Bell goes to the stories and the imagination of a country that has a great history of dreaming and expanding the mind. Russia's claiming they're going to put a man on Mars in the year 2020 or something. What is all of this about? What is this race? What is this mankind exploring all these mysteries? Art Bell has the beat all to himself. Most talk show hosts are too busy doing politics to explore these other elements. I think there's definite room for it.
Delray Beach, Florida, on the Democratic line for Matthew Drudge.
Hello.
Hi.
Bush did not win the presidency. Palm Beach County handed the presidency to him. One reason is a lot of people thought they were voting for Al Gore, and they voted for Pat Buchanan. That's all I have to say.
Next call, we go to Portage, Michigan, on the Republican line. Good morning.
Hi, Matt, I was wondering where your hat is that you usually wear that you look so dapper and handsome in.
He already asked. Lamb already asked, and it's it's a respect out of C-SPAN that I took the hat off. Now, if I ever go to a White House press briefing, I'll put the hat on or something. There's certain institutions I have respect for and others that I don't.
In a couple minutes, we're going to talk to your dad, and on his website, he says, by trade, I'm a family therapist.
Yes, who's been married 3 or 4 times. Which we should get into.
And you have not.
No, I have not. But he's also decided to run a website, not based on profits and ambition or nude pictures and the rest like Salon and some of these others. He wants to provide links and resources and information, and I certainly hope this passed through the genes.
What kind of a guy is he?
He's a quiet guy. He used to be a lot more political. We'll ask him when he comes on exactly what he used to do here in Washington, especially during the Nixon era.
Are you close to him?
I am close in spirit. We live 1,000 miles away, but the irony that we've both ended up on the internet making a name for ourselves is kind of humbling because you never know where you're going to end up, and the fact that you can work side by side with your dad is pretty good. Even though we're separate, even though they'll argue, the New York Times will argue he does facts and resources and I do gossip and rumors. A nice try, New York Times. That ain't the case.
His website, Bob Drudge's website is refdesk.com. And on there he has some salutations. Favorite website, General Colin Powell, New York Times, January 26, 2001. He likes your dad more than he likes you.
A good question. I wonder how he found my dad. We'll have to ask the General that once. Did you see, and maybe my dad could get in on this, Colin Powell yesterday, I know over at C-SPAN 2 right now, you're running his testimony, praised Castro. He's done some good things for his people, Colin Powell said of Castro. This is a bombshell. As far as I can tell, at least where I'm from in southern Florida, this is going to be remembered.
Globe, Arizona, independent line for Matt Drudge. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt. We love you. I have a question, but first I want to give several facts. Please let me give them. It's about the Voters News Service. I understand that the votes are called in, then they tabulate them, and they report them, while no one verifies that their reporting is correct. New Mexico got 10,000 votes after they were partially recounted, 10,000 more than Voters News Service had reported. Iowa proved in '96 in 2 precincts that they switched their votes from Pat Buchanan to others. And in '96, ABC ran the results of election the night before the election. a disgruntled employee seems to have done that to them to embarrass them.
Thanks. What do you think?
Don Hewitt, the executive producer of 60 Minutes, who's on this book tour now, has suggested that one evening news broadcast is all that's really needed. One gigantic CBS, NBC, ABC news broadcast where they all pool resources and they all report it at once. So it'll be big and special and exciting. The Voter News Service was very similar to what Hewitt is suggesting on a daily basis. This, of course, once every 2 years, 4 years, where everybody pools resources and one organization reports something. I fear this recount that we're getting here, again, results are in, but the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, Wall Street Journal, everybody counting at the same and reporting all at once. This is a danger in this country. The great thing about our history is we have such a wide variety of outlets, and with the internet even more so now. At the height of New York City, it was 12 newspapers, 14 newspapers. I don't think they were sharing information and pooling resources. So the Voter News Service maybe should be left in the 20th century, and the 21st century should be hundreds, if not thousands, of sources reporting on election results.
By the way, at the moment, in trying to reach your father by phone, we're getting no answer.
You have the right number?
I don't know. Do you have the number?
I think you do have the right number, yeah.
I hope we have the right number. We're, at the moment, I'll show you the number we have here in a moment so that you can see if we have the right number. What about this story? This is in Lloyd Grove's column. Denise Rich is different from you and me. Barbara Walters tonight, I guess, and Vanity Fair. And it says Vanity Fair fleshes out the rich lifestyle, enumerating her 6 maids, 2 butlers, a cook, a secretary, as well as 2 drivers, 2 masseuses, a trainer, a yoga instructor, and a personal photographer on call, with show places in Southampton, New York, and Aspen, Colorado, along with her Manhattan Palace, filled with originals by Picasso, Calder, and other named brand artists. Rich employs a man who carefully calibrates her wardrobe for each scheduled event up to 6 weeks in advance, the magazine reports, individually numbering the designer and the custom-made outfits, often for as many as 3 changes a day.
Well, Lloyd got that. The New York Daily News puts it on their front page. No Hubba with Bubba reports Mort Zuckerman this morning. I have it as my lead, Denise. I would do it again over at the drudgereport.com. Yeah, we're all falling for the ABC News spin and press release and the Graydon Carter at Vanity Fair press release. But this is Denise Rich. No surprise here, coming forward saying, listen, I did nothing wrong and I would do it all again.
Art Bell would like this. Rich, who believes in reincarnation, claims that her late daughter Gabrielle, who died of leukemia at age 27, was, quote, whispering in her ear from on high to lobby for Mark Rich's pardon. As for her gifts of 2 coffee tables and 2 chairs to Bill and Hillary Rodham Clinton, quote, everybody gave furniture, Rich tells Vanity Fair. There was a list going around from the decorator, but our favorite revelation is, quote, this is from Miss Rich, there is definitely a black person inside of me waiting to get out. I am sure I was once black.
Yeah, everybody gave everything, and I know she's pretty good. She writes those great songs. We'll see how Barbara Walters does tonight. Of course, it's the May sweeps, so they held this interview for the May sweeps. Everything, as that caller said, big business and news colliding.
Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Democratic line for Matt Drudge. Good morning.
Matt Drudge. I'm a veteran, Vietnam, wounded, came home to, you know what we came home to. And I see you sitting there praising George Bush as if he's God. Don't misunderstand him. Don't get him mixed up with God. Because what you're doing is just what they did to Ronald Reagan. And when reality sits in on America, we're gonna hurt. We're set back 20 years by you, Rush Limbaugh, Pat Buchanan. Those days are gone. There's no place for you in the 21st century, man. Everybody has a right to feel and do what they're supposed to. Don't shut us out, man.
Explain why. Where is he shutting you out?
All over. This man, it's no telling what color his nose will be tomorrow. I mean, get real, man.
But explain yourself, though, on what's going to happen. What's the doom you're seeing in the future?
I see the doom. The same thing happened with Ronald Reagan. President Reagan would have been an immaculate president. But people like him and Pat Buchanan, they push things that Reagan wouldn't touch, and they know it.
Like what?
Like, look at Rush Limbaugh. He has this thing about, if you're a Democrat, you are an idiot, you're out of place, you don't belong. Man, that's not so. You know, we pay, the Democratic Party pay the same thing the Republican Party pays for water, electricity, everything. What's wrong? Come together, man.
Hattiesburg, let me ask you a question. Why do you listen to Rush Limbaugh if he says all that stuff and you don't like it?
Only in scanning channels, man. I don't listen to it.
All right, thanks. Mr. Drudge.
And you said there's no place for me. So you're doing to me what you're accusing the others of doing to you. That sounds like a formula of disaster, sir. As far as what I'm shutting out voices on my website, and I don't know any other major news outlet that does this. I have, not to say that I am, but Islamic Republic Wire, sir. I have a link where you can go and read that, and you can see it in real time from that point of view, and others. So to sit here and throw this at me and to say I'm calling George Bush God and I'm worshiping, I don't call any politician God, sir. As a matter of fact, I have question marks of anybody who seeks high office and ambition.
Check that number if you would, please, and tell us if that's the right one. We're still not being able to.
It's the number.
It's the number. He's flown the coop on us this morning. Think he doesn't want to face his son?
I hope that's not the case. I know competition's tough. No, I'm sure he'd like to be on. I don't know what the problem is.
How many of you are there?
How many Drudges? How many Drudge kids? Just me. They cracked the mold, they broke it, and never again, hopefully.
Is your mom alive?
Yes, she is, and I'd like to break news right here and now that she's launching a website, but I think she's not going to yet. D.C. is safe.
Where does she live?
Just up the road up in Gaithersburg, and she's probably watching this now. Hello, Ma.
And is she really going to do a website sometime?
No. Even so, she's on it now, and she's getting all her information. She recently was off the web for a couple of days, and she noticed the difference. And you're probably seeing this too, Brian, the difference all this information is made away from the print to the digital. And I don't think you could put the toothpaste back in the tube. I think we're entering quite an exciting period where the best information is going to win out.
How old is your website?
7 years.
How old are you?
34. I should note, my website was up before the Washington Post, before the New York Post, before Slate, Salon, CNN, all these. It's been a tough road. I've taken a lot of arrows. I've been sued from the highest office in the land. It's been a tough road. But I happen to think if you've got the guts, which I do, and you know, technology's come along and I don't need anybody else to hire me, you should take a chance at it. So it's been 7 long years, but 7 exciting years.
Oakwood, Ohio, Republican. Good morning for Matt Drudge.
Yes, good morning. I am so thrilled to be talking to Matt. I can't believe I got through. I want you to know that I am a fan, and I am friends with hundreds of fans online. We just love you. You do have a following out there, and I have in response to many of the callers that seem to be wanting to squish your voice, I want to say it always disturbs me that, like you said, there's no place for us, and then they make the point, so please, Matt, you go away.
Yes.
And it's so distressing. You know, we are allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a voice.
Thanks. I'm sorry. I thought you was through. Comment?
Well, in this town, it's a battle of the DNC and the RNC, all of them, their blast emails and faxes. You saw that during the election. Information's being shaken up. Everybody has access now. To say you were shut out from the process, to say you can't launch your own website, I do fear big media conglomerates like AOL, Time Warner don't respect individuals and think the corporate way is the way to go for information. This could be a fight of the future when 4 or 5 people, mainly people like a Murdoch, own everything. And that does scare me a little bit. But I have a feeling it's all going to get shaken up.
Guess who we found?
He woke up.
Mr. Drudge, are you there?
I'm here.
Good morning.
I just want to say that it must have been Art Bell that intercepted my phone here or something, because my phone wasn't working. And then all of a sudden, it was. Listen, Brian, I want to tell you that I'm a great admirer of yours, and I've been a fan for years, and it's great to finally talk with you.
Well, we want you to come here someday with your son or even alone and tell us about your website.
I'm kind of a shy guy. I guess I'd be glad to come in sometime and talk with you and Matt.
So what do you think of your son?
I am so proud of him for standing up, being a voice on the Internet. I know how hard it is. I'm attempting to do a grassroots site myself for the last 6 years, and it is an uphill battle.
Why?
Well, there's something about, I believe the essence of the Internet is that it's the free and unfettered access to information. And there's something about that that threats the corporate body. There's always got to be some strings attached to the price of information. And as a grassroots site, it is a continual struggle to try to find revenue to keep the site alive.
Do you do anything else but your website now?
I do my website now full time. I've quit all other jobs, and I do that. And it's one of those things in life that comes along rarely, to do what you love to do and to believe that it matters. And how can anything else be more fun in life?
Now, what do you think your main influence has been on your son, Matt, sitting here?
I would hope it would be his passion to follow his own individual bliss, and I think he's blooming in it. He has a natural, innate sense of the people, and when to communicate with the people, and he has, I think, his talk radio and his television experience is serving him well. And Matt, no matter what people think of him, he can connect with people, and I think that's a gift.
What do you, Matt Drudge, what do you think of that analysis?
Well, it's a good one. I would advise my father to get more attention. Find a dirty dress lurking in some corner. No, it's been a great run. And in fact, Colin Powell coming forward in an open meeting at the State Department advising the State Department staffers to use RefDesk, saying he doesn't even keep books anymore, he's just using my dad's site. You go from there, and I hear Dick Cheney's also quite interested in the site, and from there. It doesn't surprise me, these guys have good taste. They've always probably read you, Dad. Probably Hillary's reading you this morning.
The Colin Powell learned of RefDesk from senior officials at the Pentagon. Military people worldwide use RefDesk primarily because I have one of the more extensive, if not the most extensive listings of newspapers for all 50 states and all countries in the world that have online editions, and military being posted all over the world use that and other things on RefDesk. So Colin Powell got tipped to this through his connections at the Pentagon, and it went from there, and it's really been quite a ride.
Bob Drudge, can you give us a story of about Matt Drudge when he was growing up that indicated to you that he'd be doing something like he's doing now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if Matt will ever talk to me again, but I can... Now, of course, Matt's mother and I, the marriage didn't work out, and when Matt was 5 or 6, there was a separation, but I've always maintained contact with Matt, and we've always been close. I remember the times when Matt would be doing talk radio shows and interviewing people, and I mean, he was very small and he was very good at it. As I was active at the time politically, as I guess you would call me a liberal. Now I'm more independent. During the Watergate times, and I had a friend, and we used to go down and we used to picket and we used to boycott and all that stuff during the anti-Nixon days, and we used to go out in costume. I would be Kissinger, and my friend would be Nixon. We'd go out in masks, and we'd go out in full regalia, and got arrested. We even got covered in one of Bob Woodward's books. I think The Brethren talks about us. So in that milieu, Matt was brought up, and there was times when Matt would go right along with us. So I guess...
yeah, probably I wouldn't have agreed with it, though. Looking back, we've argued about this. Who was the bigger crook, Nixon or Clinton?
Well, you see, at the time, looking back now, I saw it more as street theater and entertainment myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to believe that E.E. Cummings is probably right when he says that a politician is an arse upon which everything is sad except a man. I just don't have I don't have a whole lot of patience for anybody that would seek higher office.
Bob Drudge, thanks. We're going to, once you come over here sometime and do this on the television.
I would really like to do that, and I want to thank you, Brian, for having me on and supporting Ref Desk.
Good to talk to you this morning. And now your son's going to get the last word. What would you like to say in conclusion about this meeting of the minds?
Well, it's a story that I think you can take with you wherever you are. It doesn't take much to launch a website. When I launched it, it really was on a lark. I was working in a gift shop folding T-shirts for people out in Hollywood, California. And I launched a website, and one reader turned into 5, into 100, into 1,000, to 10,000, and now I don't know what the visits were. I had 2.5 million visits yesterday. Could be from 10 people coming 2 million times. But it's a story, I think, that you can, a father, son, and maybe an entire family, and then from there a community builds, where you can sort of chart your own frontier. It's sort of the Wild West all over again. We're building America from within. Thank goodness we have freedoms, and I assure this audience, if the Supreme Court, if some vacancies open up, we're going to have a hell of a fight this summer, because some of these issues are coming up to a complete boil.
Tallahassee, Florida. Thanks for waiting. You're on with Matt Drudge.
Hello.
Hi, you're on the air.
Thanks for C-SPAN. First off, your father seems so nice. I have no idea what happened to you, but your father really seemed nice the little time I heard. One, absolutely Al Gore won Florida, and anybody who doesn't think so is just, I'm assuming, like you. They're just not opening their eyes, and the vote was suppressed. I had 2 or 3 friends of myself that tried to vote, but their names were taken off the roll mysteriously by Catherine Harris and her crew, and there's thousands of Democrats that had that happen. The real reporting should be who got taken off the roll. Was it Democrats? Was it Republicans? And who was kept off the roll? There's no reporting going on. And if you criticize the Inquirer, but man, you give out stories and you don't have facts, and you just throw things out all the time.
Thank you. I would ask you, if you don't mind, if the New York Times next week and the Washington Post and the LA Times and the Wall Street Journal all report that, based on a recount that they've observed of under and over and everything else in between, that Bush did in fact win Florida, will you accept this? I don't hear it.
Caller, are you there? Well, he's gone. I thought he was there.
I guess not.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, I want to just mention that Stuart Taylor has a piece in the National Journal, and his colleague Tish Durkin will be here in about 12 minutes. He's predicting what might happen with the Supreme Court, and he says he's talking about how Mr. Bush can put his stamp on the court. Here's how he says: the conservative Rehnquist retires in late June at the end of the court's current term. Bush nominates the more centrist O'Connor, who defers my thoughts of retiring, to be Chief Justice. He picks a politically unassailable states' writer, most likely 45-year-old White House counsel Alberto Gonzales, to fill the resulting vacancy. The Democrats, who have been spoiling for a fight, would see no advantage in trying to block the popular O'Connor, who supports abortion rights, from becoming the first female Chief Justice.
A great theory. Gonzales, if he's in charge of vetting the nominees, and he picks himself, or Bush picks himself, it will be a Cheney redux, a lot like the election. There's a guy named Ludwig, a judge named Ludwig, who's a conservative, who a lot of the Federalists inside of the White House adore, and he's been groomed. It's going to be a battle, Brian. I would expect this summer, if we get one justice retiring, or possibly 2, they have a contingency plan in the White House for 2 justices retiring this summer, I've been told. Keep tuned to C-SPAN.
Well, Mr. Stewart also says Rehnquist retires. This is another scenario. O'Connor becomes Chief Justice, but rather than choosing Gonzales, Bush goes to someone more pleasing to the Republican right, such as J. Michael Ludwig of Alexandria, Virginia, or Emilio Garza.
Ludwig is the Sparks, mild-mannered guy who is going to be the most conservative person they can put up there. I expect it's going to be a war room situation for the Democrats if that happens.
Lexington, North Carolina, you're on the air.
Yes.
Hi.
Mr. Drudge, I just want to thank you for being who you are, and like the caller before that said he didn't listen to Rush Limbaugh, I can tell he don't. But do you think that Al Gore had something to do with this breaking the story of Bob Kerrey just to discourage him from running for president for a couple years from now?
No, I don't think that was it at all. It was obviously this New York Times thing coming like a bullet in the night this Sunday, and Kerry himself going forward and getting it around. Again, I'd just like to repeat, Brian, that the notion that Newsweek holds stories and print stories, not based on if they're accurate, but based on whether it would have an effect on a candidate or an election, is really serious stuff. And I have got to get to the bottom of Evan Thomas really believes that he has a right to hold back information based on whether he thinks someone's going to win or not. Because by reference, that means that he can make somebody lose if he wants. So
do you think that Evan Thomas is the only one in this business that does this?
He's been the most vocal, and he's been maybe the most honest about it. But no, I think they probably all do it. I don't have that type of policy. I push things out, and I've been criticized for pushing things out. They'll say before it's ready. I'll say it just I don't have things based on a clock.
Mount Vernon, Illinois, for Matt Drudge. Good morning.
Yes, sir. I was just wondering why the media doesn't attack the Bush's policies on such issues as, for instance, the Clinton administration got hammered on the gay issue right off the bat, and if the Bush administration and the staff doesn't like the Clinton policy, well, so why don't they change it?
Thanks.
Well, you can't do everything immediately. I think Bush got hammered right out of the gate over the arsenic and a few other things. They've been pretty aggressive on him. The Wall Street Journal this morning, the lead Washington Wire from, is it Mr. Schaefer? Yeah, Mr. Schaefer. Claiming big donors are invited to private special briefings, intelligentsia. You cut some checks and you get the insider's view on Washington. They've been critical here. I mean, there's been aggressive press on Bush, no doubt about it.
What do you think of this? Givers of $10,000 to the National Republican Senatorial Committee are invited to attend a White House briefing series next month. They also will meet with senators and dine with diplomats at one of Washington's famous embassies. Events include briefings with HHS Secretary Thompson and Energy Secretary Abraham. The same thing went on during the Clinton administration. Would you have been critical of the Clinton administration and not critical of the Bush administration?
Well, I don't know. I think they're using Terry McAuliffe's and David Geffen's blueprint on that. I'm not sure.
Good idea?
No, not a good idea, but, you know, money does talk in this town, as it probably should, as it probably always has and always will, as long as we're free.
Tish Durkin in a few minutes. We go to Louisville, Jensen Beach, Florida. You're next.
Thank you. Lamb and Drudge, two of my most favorite people. I'd like to see statues made of you guys, but, you know, the world's full of pigeons. Matt, I follow the Internet, and I read the publications from the Council on Foreign Relations and stuff, and we seem to be moving, or at least we're being pushed towards a global-type government. The media doesn't talk about it, but it's all out there on the Internet, and the people that even write this stuff, like the Council on Foreign Relations, say so. So who's right? Me or the you or the major media? Are we going in that direction?
Well, the media doesn't talk about it because they want to have a slice of it. Sumner Redstone, Viacom, was over there meeting with the some of the sheiks so he can get Viacom and Showtime on the cable box or the satellite dish. Murdoch kept China off the front page of his New York Post, the only newspaper he owns in America during the height of that. Probably for reasons. His son recently came out saying Falun Gong, who are some sweet people who simply want to meditate in China, are the destructive force. So no surprise the big media doesn't cover this. Strobe Talbot, who was one of the lead people, #2 at state under Clinton, who had written in Time magazine of a global vision where there's one nation and one order, he's gone. He's not here anymore.
Where'd he go?
I think he went back to academe or to Yale or something like that. But the spirit of that still lives here. Somebody I know recently printed out a speech from Colin Powell and a speech from Madeleine Albright. You couldn't tell the difference. That makes me very nervous.
Here's a website email, Mike Rothcurry, if that's the way you pronounce it. I live for your website, but must admit the book was a $17 piece of poo. Question 1, will you promise to never write a book again unless you have Coulter, Goldberg, or Horowitz as ghostwriters? Question 2, can I have my $17 back?
No, and all of your free use of my website, sir, for all those years, I hope was worth $17. I had fun with that book. I'm thinking about doing another one, as a matter of fact, so hide under your bed.
Quick takes. David of Long Beach, should the public be able to view Timothy McVeigh death over the internet?
Don Hewitt again, 60 Minutes, says he would show it on 60 Minutes. He would show the syringe going into the vein. Should we? I don't think so. I don't think we're there yet. We're not quite back to the Roman times, even though some streets look like we are.
Email from Middleborough, Massachusetts. Would you explain how your news content, not the actual way with which it is reported via the internet, differs from that of the National Enquirer?
They have better pictures.
What is your relationship to David Horowitz, says James of Santa Clara, Utah?
I have a link on my website. When I got sued back 4 years ago, he was kind enough to set up a legal defense fund on that. By the way, with this lawsuit, Brian, because I know you've been following this, the Sidney Blumenthal suing me, we have, I hope to have broken news here this morning on this, but we don't have it quite yet. There'll be a development and a resolution of this quite shortly, and it should be interesting how it comes out.
Louisville, Kentucky, Democrat, good morning, for Matt Drudge.
Good morning, Matt. I was wondering why, I've heard the question asked many times, but nobody will answer it. Why can we not find out where George Bush was those some 8 months when he was AOL from the National Guard?
Why can't you find that out? Probably because Bush doesn't want you to find that out. And is it important now? I don't know.
Would you be fired up if it was Bill Clinton?
Where was he during months? Where was he? Was he in Russia on that tour while he was in college at the university? All of these things, you can go back only so far. The point is, ma'am, he is president. He's going to be president unless you can find something to impeach him on. I don't know how far back you want to go and to keep that going.
Wayne, Ohio, you're next.
Hi, Matt Drudge. I'm so glad to talk to you. Hey, when I was in my about 13 or 14, my grandfather got me into politics during the 70s, and then after that I got into the Navy, and I always watched the evening news, CBS, and then during the Persian Gulf War, my eyes were open to the truth about how they only were spewing one avenue of news. And now I've gotten onto you. Matter of fact, I tell everybody, do you ever, Matt Drudge, and you're the first guy that comes up in the morning in my office in my house. I turn my computer on and it's Matt Drudge so I can get, and it's amazing that your information on the Drudge Report, you will find out later on in the day that your information is right. I mean, it's the first information.
How often does that happen?
Well, to be fair, I am getting most of my stuff from main press outlets, from the Associated Press, from UPI, from Reuters, from the New York Times News Service. I just get it up faster. And by the way, I don't have to sit in the makeup chair for hours and hours like these anchormen do.
Steve of Houston says, which talk radio shows, which radio talk shows, if any, do you make it a point to listen to? If so, who?
That's easy. Of course, you can go from Limbaugh. We already talked about Bell. I listened to a rascal out of Miami called Neil Rogers just for the sake of it, and he makes me laugh. I've been a talk radio junkie. Growing up here, I used to fall asleep to WMAL every night, WVA out of West Virginia.
What time Sunday night's your talk show?
I am on 10 o'clock, coast to coast, here, East Coast time.
10 to what?
10 to 12. 2 hours a week is all they can give me.
Is it run live in San Francisco at 7?
Exactly, on an KSFO up in San Francisco on at 7. But talk radio is one of these mediums that's close to the root, close to the people, a lot like this channel.
Recently, so many of the radio stations have been knocked off of the internet. How about yours?
Oh, yeah. I ripped up my AfterCard on the air because they're charging a certain premium for ads that stream on the internet. But yeah, the internet, which was once free and wild and exciting, is now falling under the jurisdiction of courts and laws and boo-hoo.
Johns Island, South Carolina, last call for our guest. Good morning.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Brian.
Morning.
I apologize. It's bad allergies. Good morning, Matt.
Morning.
The call from your father gave me some food for thought, something I had never, ever considered before, and that is a comparison between Bill Clinton and Richard Nixon, and who was, I suppose, the most immoral president. Well, I thought about that, and I have not had to visit any of my brothers, cousins, classmates, graves that have died as a result of Clinton's immorality. But I do believe that Nixon was trying to kill off my generation. And please don't take that in a hateful way.
Thanks.
Here we are in 2001. We've got a new president, and I'm sure 20 years from now, people will be saying something about Bush. A great tradition in this country of being critical of our presidents, and on a beautiful morning like this, Brian Lamb, that tradition continues.
We're out of time. Thank you very much for coming. And you're going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner tomorrow?
I am. I will be in disguise, and I'll be looking to see who's rubbing who under the tables.
Who are you the guest of?
I am the guest of UPI simply because I think they're doing a great job. Also, I'm very concerned that AP has become sort of a dominant force, a scary monopoly of wire services.
And UPI now owned by the Washington Times.
Now owned by the owners of the Washington Times. So I'm hoping there's a competition back in wire services because, again, repeating the theme I bring this morning is there's a danger of one person owning everything.
Tish Durkin will be with us in just about a minute and 45 seconds.